Hi, I'm Dr. Bill Ronzheimer, president of Marriage Reconstruction Ministries. It's the mission of this ministry to help men and women rebuild their marriage that's been affected by a spouse's childhood sexual abuse. We focus more on situations where a wife is a survivor of the abuse, but this video is addressed to both men and women who are non-survivors of abuse, who are the spouses of abuse. And I'm trying to narrow down in this video major key points that would outline, well, how shall we then live? How is it that we can do our part to bring health and healing into the marriage? We can't fix this, but we can contribute towards health. And the first point would be to understand that many survivors of abuse have experienced trauma. In the 1970s, clinical psychologists were noting, as the war veterans were coming to see them, were noting the specific behaviors and outcomes of the trauma that they had faced in war. At that time, they were also noticing that as survivors of sexual abuse were coming into their clinics, the same things, the same behaviors and outcomes were being listed as concerns for the survivor. In other words, the survivors of sexual abuse had experienced trauma as well, just as a war veteran, in a different way, but nevertheless trauma. We would never say to a war veteran, "Why can't you just get over it?" In the same way, never should we say, "Why can't you just get over it?" We need to realize and understand that they have experienced a trauma, and many of them have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. A second key point for those of us who are married to survivors of abuse is to empathize. Empathy is knowing what it is to be in your shoes while at the same time simultaneously knowing what it is to be in my shoes. That needs to be kept in balance. If I focus only on what it is to be in your shoes, we become codependent in our behavior. At the same time, if we focus more on what it is to be in my shoes, we can become narcissistic. Needs to be held in balance. And one of the ways of understanding what it is to be in our spouse's shoes is to learn what we can about childhood sexual abuse and its effects. You can watch more of these videos or go on our website and read the content there in order to better understand what it is for your spouse to be in their shoes. But remember, self-awareness of ourselves is just as important. The third key point is to be patient. And the best way to be patient is to be a good listener. Brene Brown has pointed out that there are three things necessary for shame to survive: silence of the survivor, secrecy, and judgment. Well, we can rectify that. As spouses of survivors, we should listen non-judgmentally, and we should allow the survivor to talk out their feelings rather than attempting to talk them out of their feelings. So many times and I'm sure you have as well, told another person, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, they do feel that way. Rather than trying to talk a person out of their feelings, when we allow the survivor to talk out their feelings, they're going deeper and deeper into dealing with the reality of that abuse, which is necessary in order to get on a pathway towards healing. The fourth is to let God do what he wants to do in our own lives. Too often we see the survivor as the identified patient, and yet there are times when a lot of work needs to be done in our lives. Ken Graber, author of Ghosts in the Bedroom, has stated this: finding ourselves in a relationship with a survivor of sexual abuse means we must look at ourselves to see why we were attracted to a person like that. Even if the sexual abuse issue had not been identified when we met, at a subconscious level, we were in tune with each other and we're communicating on the same wavelength. In other words, dysfunctions have a complementary relationship. My wife, as many survivors of abuse, had been silenced. I came into the marriage as a controller. That is a bad blend of dysfunction. As I took control, she was silenced. Gradually, as she began to heal and gained her voice back, I needed to release control way before that was happening so as not to hold her back in her healing. And so we need to look at our own baggage, if I can use that term, and discover within ourselves, what is it that needs to be changed in my life, and allow God to do what He wants to do in us. And allow this time to be a time of enrichment. Because you can potentially learn more about yourself, more about God, and more about your spouse than any other time in your life as you go through this journey. Fifth, guard your own heart and mind. In marriages that have been affected by sexual abuse, there is often difficulty in the bedroom, in sexual intimacy. And unfortunately, because of that, many non-abused spouses will find it easy to resort to pornography as a substitute. Now, in pornography, that person on the page is a real person. That person on the screen is a real person. However, the engagement of pornography objectifies that real person, becomes an object for our own use. That is the very same behavior of the perpetrator and the perpetrator's actions towards your spouse. There is no way that we would want to bring that into our own lives or into our bedrooms. And so we, if we have not received help, need to get some help in order to guard ourselves from that danger. So guard your heart and guard your mind. Sixth, advocate. Advocate for your spouse. Do all you can to make sure your home is a safe place. And even extend beyond that. Advocate for all survivors. Make sure that the church you attend, the school your children attend, the civic group you're in, make sure that they are safe places. Places that are guarding against the abusive purposes of perpetrators. May you find strength to fulfill these 6 key recommendations.